It's here, it's time! Chapter 22 of my Fire Engage LTC. This chapter is widely considered the most difficult chapter in the game, especially when we aren't doing paralogs. It's a route map with reinforcements that spawn as early as turn 5, and we don't have access to the emblem rings. Instead, we have to awaken and pick up all 11 of them as we route the map. Additionally, since this is a no paralogs run, the combat benchmarks become all the more difficult for us to meet. We don't have higher levels of advantage, we don't have canter plus for extra movement, and most notably, we don't have wrath or access to higher levels of speed plus, or even higher bond level bonuses with Lyn, which is usually how many players like to meet the higher doubling thresholds of this chapter. It also means that we lose out on effectively several maps of free Parthia grinding, and have to make do with the levels we were able to squeeze out in the last few chapters. So how do we approach this? Well, we may have lost all the emblem rings, but we thankfully do still have the secret emblem Panette, and with her trusty silver great axe and axe power 2, she can still barely meet one-shot benchmarks even without wrath. Since it's a one-range weapon, we do need to have her and Amber take out the Wolf Knights, and Panette is even able to use the smash weapon to her advantage to get exactly into vantage range, even with the plus 5 HP from S-rank Dieck, which I am so thankful for, as she's really going to need that plus 20 hit.
Let's pray.
There are also the two wyverns that she has to watch out for, who are too bulky to one-shot, and one even has a tomahawk. Here we take advantage of a little quirk with the emblem rings. When they aren't awakened by a leer, they actually count as impassable terrain, so with some carefully placed obstructs, we can prevent them from reaching her. For the rest of the map, we have Ivy head down the center to face the middle enemies, while Kagetsu will take on the right side. To ensure that the Swordmasters go for Panette instead of Ivy, we have a leer place one final obstruct above them.
Count on me.
Now begins the first dangerous enemy phase. Without Bonnet Shield, Ivy takes the Micaiah engrave and hopes for the best. Her first enemy thankfully has a great axe, so he's no issue, and is kind enough to allow her to hit level 14 and activate Bushido from S-rank Ryoma. Bushido is normally known for granting plus 10 crit, but for us, we are more interested in this being the only ring that both grants plus 2 speed and plus 2 attack, which she's going to need to exactly one round the sages. Before then, a Tomahawk Warrior and Axe General will attack first with pretty low hit rates, and she only needs to dodge one of them. Next up is easily the sketchiest part of this turn. Lindon uses the forbidden combo of his personal skill with a Corn Engraved L-Surge, which with Spur Attack allows him to exactly crit kill these ridiculously bulky heroes. The Sage meanwhile goes down to Mauvier, who has exactly enough attack and speed to one round with a Griffinry class and -1 weight spear. Once again, the Celica Engrave comes through. Ivy absolutely has to dodge the Excalibur Sage, as she doesn't have enough bulk to tank the hit in addition to the perfectly accurate L-Surge. Unfortunately, while she does have just enough speed to double the Sages, she's not quite fast enough to double the Wyverns, and with Panette unable to one-shot them either, we have to find another solution. This is where our Hortensia training pays off, as even with her pitiful magic and B-rank tomes, a juiced up Elwind is still enough for her to do just enough damage, and due to her low bulk, the Wyverns can't resist going after her over Ivy. Even then, with the Seraph robe and HP tonic, she actually faces 0 chance of death thanks to one of them carrying a great axe. Finally, Kagetsu on the right side cleanly wipes out the Royal Knights, as with the Byleth engrave, he has perfect hit rates and has enough bulk to not need any dodges. If only it were always that easy. Alir moves in to heal off the damage Ivy took and begin awakening the rings. With the dance from Seedle, Ivy will be back to full HP and the top 2 groups of rings are ready to be picked up.
Looking good.
Panette, who we've reclassed to Warrior, switches to the Killer Bow and moves into the bottom left. This area is especially awful for LTC, as there's a Longbow Bow Knight and Thoron Mage Knight that have overlapping ranges with the 2-range enemies. Thankfully, with the way the rings have been placed, we can once again place an obstruct down and prevent those 3-range enemies from reaching her. Amber safely chips the L-Surge stage with a javelin so that he can finish her off on enemy phase, while Mauvier will body block the paladin from killing Amber alongside the obstruct, while getting in position to one-round the stationary meteor stage. Hortensia rescues Saphir down so that she can place the obstruct that will protect Panette from the 3-range enemies. It may feel a bit wasteful to have Saphir play a more supportive role instead of a combat role, but with our trained units outshining her and taking care of all the combat we need, another support griffin is far more valuable, so that's what we go with.
Hold nothing back.
After Kagetsu takes out the final Royal Knight, Pandreo switches him to the Ike engraved Steelbow and repositions him to be ready to face the 11-sword Griffin, picking up Lucina in the meantime. We wrap up turn 2 with Ivy attacking the Worm, who she'll want to dodge at least once over player phase and enemy phase. Unless she just gets lucky and Grasping Void crits it, which honestly helps a lot, as this enemy phase isn't any better than the last one. The sub-70 crit rates don't end with Lindon, as Panette now needs to do the same against a sniper and a bow knight. Unfortunately, such is how it goes when we don't have Wrath. Since Ivy got the lucky crit on the Worm, it's okay if she gets hit by this Griffin, but she decides to make things easier again and gets the dodge. Speaking of dodge, this Levin Griffin annoyingly has Darting Blow, granting an extra 12 avoid and causing Kagetsu to only have 53 displayed hit. Not what you want to see when we already have Panette going for these sketchy crits. With only the high-ranged enemies remaining, Panette is finished with Vantage Sweeping and gets a heal from Alir, as we'll want her to tank an attack next enemy phase. Of course, since Alir's physic is pretty weak, we'll need to give her a second one from Mauvier. She can then pick up the Sigurd and Erica rings and try to crit this Mage Knight. Unfortunately, here we're going to get a look behind the curtains and see just how bad sub 70 crit rate really is, as I'm going to have to rewind quite a few times to get it.
Onigiri.
For Kagetsu, we'll have him shoot the last Griffin while getting in position to enemy phase the last 3-range enemy with a longbow after getting healed by Pandreo, which will make it much easier to enemy phase the bottom right group. After Panette finally gets the crit, she takes advantage of equipping Sigurd to canter out of range of the Worm, so she'll only need to tank the longbow. Here I hesitate a bit, as I've never had such a favorable position where Ivy is still at full health and every attack actually connects against the Griffin. Because I now don't have to take extra actions to kill the Griffin or heal Ivy, I can have her get a couple free kills on the Berserkers to make the upcoming enemy phase a bit easier. At least that's what I thought, but it does end up changing the enemy movement order to be a bit less favorable. Hortensia holds off on picking up Micaiah for one turn, as we actually want the rescue boost for Alir to get him out of range of the Bone Knight and the Worm.
I'm okay.
After Amber finishes off the Paladin with some additional chip from Lindon, we have Xander do the very important task of picking up Lyn and Violet before heading into a much less scary but still not perfect enemy phase.
Please come with me if you would, Emblem.
Here I get a little punished for immediately killing the Berserker, as now the Martial Master goes first and gets 2 chances to break Ivy before the Halb attacks. Thankfully the hit rates are low and she does end up dodging both hits, but it's a risk that was easily avoidable. Kagetsu hilariously misses his attack against the High Priest, which gives me a small heart attack as I'm afraid I might need a lucky dodge next turn, but thankfully it turns out okay. The last thing that needs to happen is for Panette to not get crit by either of these Lombo attacks, and we'll soon be home free. Pandreo rescues Alir to the right side so he can awaken the last set of emblems. Because of how fortunate Ivy's ending phase was, I can go for a greedier Alir positioning, placing an obstruct to his right and allowing Ivy to end her turn next to him for the support bonus. Normally, Ivy would use her player phase action to finish off a High Priest. However, since she got a Grasping Void proc, she can instead take out one of the Great Knights, removing one more threat for her final enemy phase. Hortensia now picks up Micaiah and warps Mauvier forward to pick up Ike. In hindsight, I should have given him a Fracture Staff for Panette's safety against the Worm, as he otherwise has a wasted action. Instead, she needs to get a Revanche crit on the first try instead of getting 2 attempts. Assuming I can actually pick the right weapon. Even if I had the skill slot to fit reposition, Amber would still be 1 square short of the Bow Knight, so I need to spend one more rescue to get him there. Now we run into Kagetsu's HP problem. Citrinne is thankfully close enough to physic him, but it still isn't enough to tank the Thunder. Fortunately, I still have Xander, who can trade over the physic and provide exactly enough healing, and now that it's player phase, Kagetsu's personal is active, so he has much more favorable hit rates and finishes off the High Priest. Saphir is free to finish off the Martial Master and eliminate the risk of Ivy getting broken, finally giving us an easy enemy phase. And just like that, we are finally out of there. Chapter 22 completed in 4 turns.